FM24 is still quite a while away just yet, but it doesn't stop us thinking about the kind of features that we'd like to see in the next iteration of Football Manager. So in today's video, I'll be choosing the 5 things that I want to see in the next game of FM, but I need your guys' help as well. I want you to let me know in the comments down below what you want to see from the next version of Football Manager, and then we can make a whole video about your guys' ideas as well. So let's run the intro and get right into it. Hello everyone, Jake here for FMSCOUT. As mentioned, today we'll be breaking down 5 things that I want to see in FM. Let's call it my FM24 wish list. Now, I just want to make it clear straight away, I'm not a game developer. I know these things are hard to do or likely quite difficult to do and would take a lot of time. I'm not saying any of these are easy and that once you have the idea you can just make it. No, I'm not stupid, of course. But as a fan of the game, I can still think about the things that I'd like to see, and that's what we'll be doing today. If you do enjoy the video, smash the like button. Remember to comment your ideas down below and subscribe to help us get to 160,000 subscribers. But let's start off with the first change that I'd like to see. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about is something that I covered in my FM23 wish list. It was in my FM22 wish list. It's something a lot of us have been crying out for, and that is an update to the set piece creation within Football Manager. And there's a few things that I think should be improved. Now, last year I came up with the idea of this situation where you could maybe plan an actual set piece in terms of the passes, who it then gets laid off to, who shoots. So, you could say maybe, left midfielder comes short, passes it out to the central midfielder, then this player then to run on and hit the ball, something like that. Obviously, I'm sure that'd be very complicated to do and maybe doesn't make the most sense, but there's a big change that I think set pieces really need, and I'll cover that now. So let's say you want to take a near post corner, right? You're playing a ball into near post, you want to have your best header of the ball there. Now, let's say you've got a Marouane Fellaini or something. Let's say it's this defensive midfielder, a really good player in the air, and you want him to attack the near post. That's all well and good when Marouane Fellaini or whoever it is on the pitch. It's going to cross the ball into the defensive midfielder, who would be him, and he'd then have a chance on goal. Let's say, though, for this game, Marouane Fellaini isn't playing defensive midfield, but you've got N'Golo Kante in. That would then mean that because the balls are going to the defensive midfielder, that the ball's being crossed onto Kante's head, which isn't what you want. And what you have to do in FM is before every game, you have to change your set piece rounds. You go, okay, who is the tallest player we've got on the pitch today? Oh, it's our striker Lukaku. Let's aim the balls towards him. And it's just very tedious, and there's got to be a better way to do it. Now, there's a few things I could potentially think of. Again, not a game designer, but let's say that your centre-back was your best header of the ball. Instead of it being based on position, you should be able to choose an area of the pitch, let's say this near post section, and put the names of the people in order, the same way that you do for, say, the free kick takers. Where is it? On here, where you can basically choose the order of people that you want to take your set pieces. And I think something like that could be incorporated into the corner routines, into the free kick routines. Either way, I feel like there should be some kind of revamp. Your alternative to this, and I think this is something that is a very realistic possibility, is in the real life world, you often see, particularly clubs in the highest divisions in the world, will have a set piece coach, someone whose job it is to design set pieces for your team. Now, I think that should be a staff role in Football Manager, a set piece coach, and you can delegate your responsibilities for him to set up set pieces. His job will be to create these set piece routines before a game, analyse, maybe their centre-back is quite small, we'll put our tallest player on him. It seems like their goalkeeper isn't very good at protecting his back post, so let's cross the ball towards his back post area. All of these things I feel like could be incorporated into a staff role. Like everything in Football Manager, you could do it yourself, but if you want to, you could delegate it to the set piece coach. And I think that's something that they should add, some kind of revamp to the set pieces. Next, and this is a big one that a lot of people who come to FM who haven't played it for years look at it and go, what on earth is this? And it is the new gen faces. Now, a lot of people won't be bothered by this, some might be, but I actually think if you looked at the new gen faces over the last, 5 or 6 years, I don't think there's been a massive improvement. Some people would even argue it might have got worse. Obviously, it's all a case of taste, and I don't expect Football Manager to design a million different faces that they can put onto players. But we've seen over the last few years, there are mods that you can add to the game where it will take into account where the player is from. Let's say you've got a player from Scotland. It would work out what the likely ethnicity would be of that player, and from there, it generates a real-life photo, the same way that you would have for a real player, like Oscar Pereira here, but it would be be of a fake person, someone that doesn't exist. If you're interested in how this kind of thing works, I believe there's a website called This Person Doesn't Exist, where every time you refresh the page, it creates an image of a person that isn't real but looks as photorealistic as anybody else that you know. And I feel like that's something they could potentially add to Football Manager to really enhance the way that new gens look. Alternatively, they could just add different styles and change the way that these players look, but it's always the eyebrows look a bit funny, the hair looks a bit glued on, right? And no one ever really looks at these and goes, wow, that looks great, I don't think. It's always just like, you get on with it because it's Football Manager, no one's bothered. But I feel like the fact that you've seen fans and mod creators creating things that can make better new gen faces, it's something that we should be able to expect Sports Interactive to potentially incorporate, maybe not next year, but in the next few years, better new gen faces. It's something that I want, and I know a lot of you will too. So that's my first two things that I'm after. Before we move on to the third wish list item, something else that might be on my wish list will be for you guys to head down to the description and check out my channel after this video and hit the subscribe button, check out the rebuilds we've got over there. I really think you'd enjoy it, and I'd be massively appreciative of anyone who does come over. But yes, thank you to anyone who does that, and let's get back to the real wish list. The third thing that I'd love to see in FM24, it's something that we actually made a video on probably about a month or so ago, and it was titled How to Play as a Director of Football in FM23, and you had to jump through a lot of loopholes and use the editor and stuff like that to get into a world where you can almost just act as a director of football. And what we mean by that is you're basically the person that deals with transfers, maybe the scouting operations at the club, and hiring of managers. You don't get bogged down into the day-to-day, you can go through seasons quicker, and you act as just a director of football really, and not the manager. Now, this is something that's, I guess, slightly controversial. The game itself is called Football Manager. The idea of it is that you're simulating the life of a real-life football manager, and being a director of football kind of goes against that. But at the same time, I feel like it is something that they could add as a mode if people want to play. Obviously, Football Manager would still be the main takeaway from buying the FM game, but you could have this director of football mode. Over recent times, they've put a lot of effort into the draft mode. There was an online mode as well, and I genuinely think a director of football mode would get 10 times the amount of players that any of those modes get. When we made that director of football video, I know I had a lot of fun playing those kind of saves. It was a lot easier to pick up, it took less time, and I feel like it's something they could potentially incorporate. So I'd love to see a director of football mode. That's definitely one of the more fantastical items on the list. I don't feel like it's something they would actually do, but a director of football mode I think would be awesome. Let me know what you think down below though. For wishlist item number 4, how many of you are like me where you go to your responsibilities, go to media, and you basically tell your assistant manager to deal with every single press conference? I've done it since probably my second year playing Football Manager. When I first started playing FM, I loved the press conferences and talking to them and answering the questions. I felt like it was a big part of the game. And then you start to realise, 1, they're quite tedious, 2, you get asked the same questions all the time, and 3, it doesn't really seem to impact the world around you at all. I mean, there's a few things that seem to have some kind of effect, but really, these press conferences weren't having a big effect and were just boring to do. Now, that's been the case for years, and I'm sure even if they did what I'm about to suggest, a lot of people would still turn press conferences off. But what we've seen recently, particularly over the last year or so, is the idea of this whole AI situation becoming more and more prominent in the current society of the world. We've made a video before about ChatGPT and Football Manager and seen how it can help you in your game. But if you went up to ChatGPT and you asked it to ask you 10 Football Manager style press conference questions, it would give you 10. And then if you asked it for 10 more, it would give you 10 different ones. And it would give you completely different ones every time. I'm not sure whether it would go on infinitely, but you get the idea. It would always ask a different question. It would use different wordings, even if it was a similar question. And whilst I'm no expert, and like I say, no game developer, no expert in artificial intelligence, I feel like they could incorporate some element of that into press conferences so that you don't get asked the same questions again. You'd still have the same kind of questions, the same effects from them. For example, you might get a question saying, is Oscar Pereira up for sale? That's the kind of thing that you get currently. Would you be willing to listen to offers? And if you say yes, sometimes there seems to be a bit more interest in the player. You would still have that in the game, except the variation of how the question would be asked, it could be generated in a million different ways from this AI, so you're never answering exactly the same question. They might word it differently every time, and it might just add to some kind of variation in the press conferences. Again, I'm not really sure how plausible that would be, more of a fantastical thing for them to add to the game, but I do think it's something that could definitely enhance enhance the press conferences. It's probably about as far as they could take them. For everyone saying that, oh, they should make press conferences better, I almost don't really know what people want them to do, because I don't actually feel like there's much you can do. So that's the fourth thing that I'm asking for on my wish list. And now let's get on to wish list item number 5. And this is something that I'm sure everybody is going to say in the comments. It's something that I've changed my mind on a few times over the years. And what I'm talking about is the match engine and the graphics of the match engine. Now, I was always someone where I would say, this didn't really bother me too much. I didn't mind that they were, stick figures playing football on the field. They've added a few more animations over the years. And at the end of the day, it gets across what it needs to get across, right? You know if your player's shot, you know if your player's passed. You get a visual representation of that player on the pitch, how they move. And I'm not expecting them to suddenly turn it into FIFA 23 kind of graphics. It's not that kind of game. At the same time, though, a lot of screenshots are going around currently in the FM community of FM12 or FM13 compared to the matchday graphics now. And it doesn't look like that much change. Now, that's just based on screenshots, and actually if you played the game, you would see there's more animations added in, the players move a lot better now, more fluidly, and different things can happen in the in-game engine. It's not as repetitive. But even with that being said, I do feel like there is room for really big improvement in the match engine. Now, over the last few years, there haven't been major improvements in it, I don't think. I feel like we're waiting for that really big one, and it could be that Sports Interactive have been working on this in the background and weren't ready to introduce it yet. Who knows, maybe we're going to get the same match engine again next year. There's a good possibility of that, but I would really love to see an enhanced match engine that looks far more realistic. I know they have the idea that some people are playing on like poor laptops and won't want to have full-fledged graphics. Well, there should just be an option for the game to auto-adjust to the graphics that you have, or you can just turn the graphics up and down. And that's in the game already. You can see you can turn the graphics up or down depending on your PC's capability. And I really do think at this point it's about time they do revamp the match engine in some way, just in terms of the way it looks. And even this looks quite fluid and nice, right? But it doesn't look like a game that's been made in 2023 in the modern generation. If I was playing FM12, let's say, and you told me this would be the match engine for FM13 or 14, I might have believed you. If you told me it was going to look like this in FM23, I probably wouldn't have. I feel like at this point, we've kind of got used to it. But yes, the match engine, I feel like could have big improvements, but that's just my ideas. Now it's your turn to let me know down below, what features would you like to see in FM24? Remember, we're going to make a video based on all your recommendations, so drop as many as you can in the comments. But most of all, have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, and goodbye.